Okay, you're good.
Okay, so welcome to the Chaos Common Metrics Working Group meeting for May 28th, 2020. So we have a few things on the agenda for today. So I'll run through the agenda and then we'll go through each of the items in turn. I'm going to need to recruit someone to run the next meeting because I'm not going to be available. We'll go through our action items and notes from the previous meeting. I know I haven't done mine, so this should be fun. We'll review any PRs and issues, look at progress on the continuous release for the time to close metric. We'll have a look at the metric spreadsheet and then figure out if there are any other metrics that we want to focus on next. Anybody have anything else they want to add to the agenda before we start talking about individual stuff?
Okay, I'm good.
Ooh,
Okay.
metric release schedule.
Yeah. I'm going to add that right here, right before we talk about the spreadsheet, because we can talk about it when we talk about the spreadsheet. Cool. And if people could help take notes, that would be fab. Oh, hey, Daniel.
Sorry for the name.
No worries. Do you have the notes or do you want me to drop them in the chat again?
I have them. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we'll start with the first one. Does anybody want to lead the meeting on June 11th, which is our next meeting, and I'm going to be unavailable?
I mean, I'm always happy to do it.
Sounds like a volunteer.
You know, that's the week Elizabeth plans on starting too. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she should be on a lot of these calls too. So.
Oh, well, that's super exciting.
Yep.
Okay, so we won't make her lead the next one, but maybe we'll.
Oh.
Just kidding.
I will be
No, I'll be around the rest of the week, so I'll see her in other things. I just have a board meeting conflict with this one for another board that I'm on. Okay, cool. So you're up to send the reminder to the mailing list and then drive the agenda.
Yep.
Just as a reminder of what you signed yourself up for. Reviewing action items and notes from the previous meeting, because yeah. And then sorry, it's the commits to look at, because evolution already has it and we need to look at whether or not we need to do something for it in common and just kind of look for the potential overlap, and I just have not had a chance to look at it. Sean just joined. Well,
sorry,
that's good
I'm late.
timing.
Yeah.
No worries. We're just looking at the previous action items. So have you made any progress on the language distribution within a project?
No, not in the formal metric, but it's going to get done.
Well, I didn't do mine either, so no worries.
All right.
And then let's see, John is not on the call. He was going to look at the contributor location metric, so we'll just probably talk about
it. He has been working on it because he tagged
cool.
things. Just like I think it's actually close to being done. Just so you know.
Oh, good. It was actually quite close before, I think. We had just it's one of those ones we had worked on quite a bit and then sort of neglected and then just going back to it.
So I don't know if you want to like think about citing, like moving it forward, or you know what I mean? It's pretty tight. I was looking at it, and
yeah, I think we should add it to the agenda to talk about on the 11th if John's going to be around.
Okay.
Or we just decide that it's ready for the continuous metric contribution process.
I mean, we could review it right now and then put it out there, and then if there are changes, the continuous review process would allow people to suggest changes, to Georg's point. Do you want to share it? I don't have it handy. Do you want to? Can someone share their screen so we can just scan it really quick? Or?
Well, let's get through some of the other agenda items first. We're just talking about action items now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to the agenda for
Got it.
later.
Got it.
Unless is that what, Georg,
That
is that what
works.
you're doing?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Done.
So Daniel, you were gonna look for those metrics already done, check they're in the spreadsheet release. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, so what I did was, so that there is the bug number 13, which is talking about some time-related metric.
Yeah.
So what I did was to go to that specific ticket. The output I produced at the very end was add the missing metrics to the spreadsheet. That if that's not the right way to proceed, we can simply remove them. But those that are now in the spreadsheet, let me share this with you, because I know the spreadsheet is kind of a visual thing, so maybe it's not the right place. Those that are under the when time, and then says, I'm just highlighting them under considering. So we have time waiting for submitter, reviewer, time waiting, iterations, time to merge in general, and the lead time to close, time to merge. We can, so these are the ones that we are missing, at least in the spreadsheet. So the other two that we were working at in the tickets was time to close, time to first response. There, yeah, both are there. The others, they are not there.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's look at that one in more detail when we get to the item where we're going to talk about the metric spreadsheet.
Okay.
And then we can talk about everything together on the release spreadsheet, if that is okay with everybody.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. So, and Kevin, you were going to resend the call for comment to the list for the time to close metric.
Yes, I'm pretty sure I did that.
You did.
Okay, perfect. We'll just mark that one as done. Okay, cool. Did we miss any action items from last week? Okay, so reviewing pull requests and issues. Here I can just, oops. I'll share my screen. I just did something bad and I can't, okay, there we go. Okay, so we have a pull request from Georg. Oh, I sent you some feedback on that one. I think you just need to, there were just a couple of typos that needed to be fixed. So if you want to just add a commit to fix those, that would be probably the easiest way to do that.
Okay. That's easy enough to do.
Cool. And then issues. We went through these in a lot of detail last time. So let's just look and see if we have any more feedback on the time to close metric, which we do not. And then it looks like there's a metric idea for a planning metric. Vinod, you were on the call, right? Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so I was going through this article, and like the idea came across that like a lot of open source projects are doing a proper planning. They have a to-do list, they have a goal items, like they have a formal planning setup. So one of the metric can be like, can we see are the open source projects are doing proper planning or just adding ad hoc basis? Okay, the idea came, we did develop something, or like are they doing it in a proper planned way? Do they have a planning document like to-do list, or maybe some organizer structure goals, or and they structure their entire activity according to that plan? So that was my idea of like as a proposed metric to gauge the health of open source community.
Yeah, I think that looks like a good idea. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Go ahead, Matt. You're on mute.
This sounds a little bit like what OpenChain does. So they basically ask vendors to demonstrate that they have processes internally, upstream. So is that what this is, Vinod? Kind of asking whether or not an
That
organization has procedures in place?
Yes, procedures like proper guidelines, and I was more inclined on the software development side, whether they are doing the development in the planned phase or just adding the features ad hoc basis. That was in my mind, but that aspect you just described is one part of the planning also.
So I bring this up because if it is similar to what OpenChain is doing, so OpenChain is a Linux Foundation project, right, that takes a look at open source in the supply chain for organizations. Do they have I don't know if they have a certification process like you're OpenChain certified, but it's a demonstration that you are attentive to processes that are important for working with open source, and that you can demonstrate these you can demonstrate these downstream to other people, and people in your upstream can demonstrate them to you. Sean and I have talked to Kate Stewart in Risk about exactly this. So actually taking a look at whether or not upstream vendors are open chain compliant, I think is what the term that they use, as a measure of risk reduction. So I don't know if we're duplicating things or if it's more appropriate in Risk. That's all.
It sounds like if they're already talking about risk, maybe it makes more sense to have that conversation as part of the risk working group and see if it's a better fit to roll it into the stuff that they're already working on.
It seems like, and we've started it
Yeah.
we've been kind of attending some of the open chain meetings. It's a little like CII badging, right? It's just does this project have some sort of certification? And so we've already kind of started it there, and maybe it is more appropriate there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the work has started, so we might as well let them keep rolling.
Does somebody want to take this over to the risk working group? Should we?
I can
just move it.
Yeah, let's
move it.
Okay. Somebody else want to do that while I start on the next?
Yep, that's an issue number 67, and I'll move the metric. Is the metric already on your spreadsheet?
No.
Okay, so I'll add it to the risk spreadsheet and pull in the text to the risk issue.
Well, because this might not need to go in the. Oh, okay. This may not need to go in the spreadsheet. This may be a duplicative of the work that they're already doing.
I see.
I don't know.
I'll put it in the right place. I'll figure out where the right place for it is.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I think, were there any others that we wanted to talk about? We talked about the issues in a lot of detail last week. Were there any others that people wanted to chat about? Okay. If I can figure out how to stop sharing. Problem is things get, okay, there we go. Okay. Progress on the continuous release for the time to close metric. I think we kind of talked about that. There's an issue for it, and Kevin sent a reminder to the mailing list. So it looks like nobody else has sent us any feedback. But it looks like that's kind of on schedule.
Closes at the end of the month, is that right? End of May. The comment period.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Which is in 2 days.
Why don't I see issue 67 at all anymore under common?
Because I moved it. It's now issue 98 in risk.
Okay.
But if you go manually to the URL, you will automatically be forwarded.
Got it.
So you can click on the link in the meeting minutes.
Got it. I'm there.
Okay, so do we want to talk about metric release schedule? Does somebody want to
Can I have
drive
one,
that part of the conversation?
can I have one comment?
Yeah, yeah,
Just
sure.
on the time to close metric, can I just put an action item for Kevin that in 2 days we get this to the, unless there's, if it remains uncommented, then we simply just roll it onto the website.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, metric release schedule. Does somebody want to drive that
Do we
bit?
want to real quick go back to pull request 66? I made the edits.
If you made the edits, I'll just go back and merge it after the meeting.
Okay.
That's all right. Or do we want? All right, let's just do it now, because otherwise I may not remember. But I've already lost that window. I must have closed it. All right, so let's. If somebody else wants to look at it and merge it, go for it. Okay, there we go. Okay, that looks good. Okay, merged.
Thank you.
Let's go back to the metrics release schedule. Somebody want to talk about that one?
We discussed on the weekly call that the 6 months window is coming up where we wanted to release on a regular schedule. And the proposal is to release on August 1st. And so I just wanted to bring this here and see if we can get consensus across all working groups.
So if we release on August 1st, does that mean July 1st-ish that we have the first release cut and out for comments? So our deadline is actually July 1st?
Yes.
Okay. Not a lot of time, but we've got a couple in the pipeline and the continuous release, so it's probably okay.
Well, if we need 1 week for all of the website edits and changes and everything. So we need 1 week before July 1st. Just from administrative standpoint. So that
We should probably get some clarity on dates, specific dates in the weekly meeting this week. Or I guess sorry, next week. I don't know what day it is. Because we're kind of making up dates here in the common working group, but we need to make sure that everybody's working towards the same dates for all the working
Yeah,
groups.
exactly.
Well, the August 1st was kind of like loosely decided in the community call.
Yeah.
So then Garrick's point is that there's a 4-week comment or a 4-week comment period ahead. But we also need an additional week just for Kevin to do the work to get it out of the repos and onto the website. So it's basically 5 weeks ahead of that.
Mm-hmm.
So that would mean that working groups would end that whatever the 24th or 23rd of June.
Okay. But that's the that's not the freeze, that's the release for comments.
Yes.
So I'm going to change that. And then, but that, well, just hang on 1 second. Then there's another deadline, which is the actual metrics freeze, which is when we have to have all the comments incorporated, is a week before that August 1st deadline. Yep. So that Kevin can get everything on the website. So we just need to make sure that everybody understands like when they need their draft for, for the review period to start, when they need to have all of their comments incorporated because Kevin needs to have a frozen version to put on the website.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we'll just put that on the on the agenda for the, oh, and it's the formal meeting, the next one. So this will be good,
Okay. Yeah.
right? The
Perfect.
first of the month.
Thanks.
Cool. Anything else on the metric release schedule?
I was going to say that, it's in terms of like volume of metrics, I mean, even like 2 and 3 per working group is great because that I think it's every 6 months that ends up being about 10 metrics released over the year. That's 20. I mean, it's a pretty good volume. And personally, I kind of like that pace of not releasing like 70 metrics in a cycle. So I think it's fairly easy to keep track of.
Cool. Okay, so why don't we have a look at the metrics spreadsheet? That's the next thing on the agenda, right? Yeah, metrics spreadsheet. Here, I can share my screen again. Okay. Somebody want to drive this portion of it? I mean, I guess I could, but okay. So we have 2 that are pending. Contributor location, which is the one that John was working on. Sorry, I'm gonna move that. That doesn't really belong in the reviewing of the progress, but if we get a chance, let's talk about that as a metric. And contributor employer location. So that was kind of along with that one. I'm not sure if he's also been working on that.
I haven't seen anything like come across.
Okay, we can have a look at that.
I mean, the drive location is the same for both in the link to metric.
Oh, interesting. I don't think that's right. I thought we had separate docs for that. That's all right. We can track that down later. I'll add that as an action item. Okay. So we have the time to close is under community review, and then we have a whole bunch that we're considering. Are any of the ones that we're considering, Daniel, did you want to talk about some of the ones you just added under the time metric?
We can open discussion there, or we can go for others. So I don't know, how would you like to proceed? In any case, probably if we decide to go with this, like this from submitter, so row 27 to 32, then probably we need to update or create probably new tickets, I guess, because all of them are referring to the number 13.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, I would say maybe let's rephrase this question. Are there any in that batch that you think are important and that we should start working on and maybe do in the next month or so to get it into the release?
Oh, okay. So if we go for that, then I do have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
Time to merge. I don't know if we are considering time to close as time to close for everything or anything, because time to merge in this case is a bit different time. So we can consider time to merge either the time for a code review process, like the whole code review, or even more adding some other extra times, as for instance, the time to merge. So you can have like the proof, right? But then there is certain machinery time until this is merged. So then we can have all of this time. So this might be useful to have a look at, because then this time to merge, when we have, let's say, defined time to merge, Then we have the other on the top, which is time to merge to master since a review is approved. So then it's the same code review process, but then after this is approved, till this is merged into master, which is kind of another time. Then kind of related are these two, which are in the code review process, row number 27 and 28, time waiting for a submitter action or time waiting for a reviewer action. So if I'm sending a patch, someone is reviewing this, and then perhaps that person asks for certain minor changes, so then this is time waiting for a submitter. So the first thing, everything, if I have to choose or go for something, I go for time to merge or even this lead time. So those are the two I would go for. This is my thing.
Yeah, and we have an implementation of time to merge as well with some filters on it, so that would be one we can help with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do see that as separate from, I mean, time to close is one way of looking at it. Time to merge is kind of a specific case of time to close, I think, but probably specific enough that it makes sense to do it as a separate metric. It might be worthwhile in the references maybe pointing to the time to close metric.
Sounds good. So we can go for time to merge.
Yeah, what do other people think? Anybody have any thoughts?
No, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think time to close already exists in evolution anyway.
Does it?
If it does,
so
why?
it would be called review. Yeah, we have something called review duration that is released, which I strongly suspect includes filters for stuff like what is being talked about here. Let me just look at it on the website. Reviews duration.
There's an issue resolution duration.
Okay, let's see.
And
median per month.
So
yeah, the only thing missing is, I mean, there's no indication of the success or failure. So instead of developing another metric, we might revise this existing metric to just include time, basically some either aggregators or filters that merged, not merged. Let me see if I can let me paste this in the minutes. I have some too many web windows open. Contributor look. Where is it in our minutes? Time to close. Where's time to merge?
It's here in the spreadsheet.
Oh, okay.
It's not one we've talked about before, I don't think, in the
Okay.
notes.
Okay. Maybe. Okay.
So unless
Where should I share the link to the actually released metric? Zoom, I guess.
Yeah, or put it in the chat.
Yeah, I meant yeah. All right. So that's the metric for review duration. Essentially, to get to time to merge would just involve adding a filter to that existing metric instead of creating another metric. And you could do this. I mean, I'm not saying we have to do that. I'm just pointing out that there's a metric that's getting at the broader category of time to merge to master, time to merge, lead time, it looks like. So do we want to add those as filters, or do we want to create entirely new metrics? I don't have an answer. I'm just asking the question.
Well, have any thoughts?
I do. So, I mean, if the easier path is just adding a filter to an existing metric, I'm for that. So less work.
The only thing there is, so we have, in this case, time to merge is like the kind of the mother of the rest of the metrics. Because if we think about the code review process, we can split that whole time into different slots, for instance. So we can use different perspectives there. So I don't know how to apply new filters to that specific filter. So just an example here. So we can have a time to merge with 3 iterations, what means that we are playing ping pong, the submitter and the reviewer. So we have some times waiting for a submitter, that's one thing. We have some times waiting for a reviewer action, so we can aggregate them, we can look for average, median, blah, blah, blah. Then we have the time between iterations, that is a full review cycle between submitter and reviewer. And then once all of this process is done and the thing is approved, or maybe abandoned, but if this is approved, then there is certain time till this is merged into master in the Git repository or any other source code management system used. So time to merge is a metric that we can split into others. So I don't know how we are doing this in this working group. So that's all. And then how this might be related to the specific filter that you mentioned, Matt. So do we need to keep applying other filters to this, or how do you see this relation? How to play with all of this?
So I think if I followed the question, and I think if I did, then I think it's a good question. So as we have common metrics, whatever they might be, whether it's time to merge, time to close, organizational diversity, contributors, those may very well show up as filters in other metrics. Is that right?
We've had a couple of instances where a common metric has had a filter added to it as a metric defined in a different working group, and we've also added filters from the evolution working group into existing common metrics. So we've done both so far. We haven't, I think, worked our way through what a standard practice might be.
Mm-hmm.
But my thinking about it is we want people to be able to find, for example, all the metrics related to some kind of thing. And so maybe it's what working group it is in may not forever affect where it lives. But right now, all of the when you say time between those 3 metrics clustered there around time to merge, or the 2 metrics on either side of time to merge, are all what the evolution working group refers to as reviews related. So, and there is a kind of higher level reviews duration that you could create filters for, or not.
My question was not necessarily about like reviews. It was about kind of common as a working group in general.
Mm-hmm.
That I think if I look in column E, that it's quite possible that all of those metrics could show up as filters in other working group metrics. I think
all, when you say all, I mean all of the ones under time, or?
Nope. So like contributors.
Mm-hmm.
So contributors could be a filter for metrics in evolution. Like you want to understand.
Yeah, and I think in some cases they are.
Yeah, it's not in all cases, but in some cases.
For sure in some, no, not in all, in some no.
So I thought this was Daniel's question, that like, how do we think about the common metrics as filters in other working group metrics? Was that the question, Daniel? Maybe I totally misread
Yeah.
it.
So that's part of the question. The other part of the question is how. So, for instance, if we have this new metric that is a filter applied to another existing metric in evolution working group, for instance, but then there are other metrics that are related to this one. How do we proceed? Do we keep adding other filters, or we work? So it's like I see a whole family of metrics around time to merge that there is relation to them. So how do we proceed? That's all. So perhaps all of them are kind of related to time to close, might be. So then this is like a whole family around metrics related to time to close. So yeah, how to keep applying filters, those either if they go to common working group, to evolution, to risk, or to any other one.
We've also created specialized versions of common metrics in evolution. So we've like, I don't know, subclassed, for lack of a better metaphor, common metrics. In this case, if we develop these metrics, we would just be, I mean, I think we want to at least reference or subclass metric review duration, because I think that it essentially falls under most of the issues related to the burstiness issue that a whole group of, I clicked on the wrong one. It's not burstiness. It is burstiness. It's not hitting. I'm not getting to the, I keep going to the issue 32 instead of 13 where they merged at some point. No, discussion of responsiveness metrics. Okay. Spreadsheet was acting weird.
So going
yeah. So yeah, I mean, these are all definitely, I would view these as either subclasses of the metric review duration or filters on metric review duration. So to your question, I don't know what the common working group wants to do in these cases.
Yeah, personally, I don't have a strong preference. I mean, I think we should. I don't know. I tend to be pretty pragmatic about stuff like this. Like whatever seems to work in the situation that we're in seems reasonable to me. If there's something that we need to define, we can spend some time defining it. Like, do we need? So the question is, is this something that we really need to specify, like across all the working groups, to define this, or is this something that we should handle on a case-by-case basis? Do people have any thoughts?
I do. So I like the idea of cross-referencing, whether it's as a filter. This is kind of what Common provides. So I like the idea of cross-referencing as a filter or as a subclass. I think that's a really good idea. I don't like the process of doing it. It just sounds like an absolute mess on two fronts. One, to explain it to people sounds very difficult. And part of the CHAOSS project is there's a lot of information, and the more we intertwine it, I think the harder it is to approach. And then two, just maintaining cross references like that reminds me of the web in like 1999. We're trying to maintain URLs.
Can we get some MIDI sounds on our website?
Yeah, it's just going to break.
Blinky under construction.
Yeah.
So I think the latter two parts kind of get in the way of my desire to try to get it done. That's all.
So how do we wanna address that?
So the simpler, the better.
I would think about it. I would want us to think about it from the perspective of somebody consuming our metrics and wanting to use them. What's going to be more clear?
Then if this is going to be the approach, probably the most proposed, the better. But then we may have inconsistencies between different metrics, but different metric, not the same metric in different working groups. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a quarter till. We should probably try to end in about 5 minutes. So, do people have thoughts on next steps? So as opposed to how are we going to resolve that? We're obviously not going to resolve this in this meeting. Is this something that, I mean, do some of you want to take this back to your other working groups and have kind of an informal discussion about what other working groups think? Or do we want to take this into the weekly meeting and tee up a discussion there?
I would prefer the discussion in the other working groups. I think those are usually smaller groups of folks who kind of have more ownership of the metrics. Sometimes in the weekly calls, that type of question goes fairly silent.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so Matt and Sean, you both attend a lot more of the working groups. Maybe you can.
I mean, I can bring it up in evolution because that's the place where it's. I mean, that's really the working group that built out the review metrics, which is what a lot of these, if not all of them, refer to.
Mm-hmm.
So I will just put it on the agenda for that working group's next meeting.
Okay. So I'm gonna give an action item to Sean to talk about this in evolution.
Yes.
And Matt, is this worth bringing up in some of the others?
Yeah, I think the way that I would bring it up is just how do we think about cross-referencing metrics?
Okay.
To Daniel's points, they're very well taken.
Okay.
Sorry for bringing the discussion.
No. It's really good. It is important because a lot of metrics do kind of butt up against other metrics, and they are related. And if one metric is using the term, say, organizational diversity, like they actually mentioned that, it's already been defined here. So if a different working group is heading that direction, it's probably important just to kind of say, listen, this has already been defined. So please use this definition.
Okay. So it looks like, is there anything else we want to talk about specifically on the release spreadsheet?
No, I still have an action item. I need to add a new row color for released as part of the 6-month release versus released as part of the continuous metrics release. So
Yeah, good point.
just to help Kevin when we get to that spot. So
Okay.
We can almost reset all of the released tags since we are now going into the next release cycle.
what does that mean?
Well, if you're going to the review process, don't we reset them to ready for release? Or do they just stay as released?
I think they just stay as released. It's only the ones that are the new ones that are marked as ready for release.
Yeah, if we marked the existing ones as ready for release, I would find that very confusing to remember which ones have had changes and which ones haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like the ones that have had changes would be ready for release. The ones that are just going to carry over are already released.
So we have to look at the diff between the released version and the current version
Yeah, so
to
like if
see
somebody
which one.
filter,
No, I mean if it's released, marked as released on the spreadsheet, then it hasn't had any changes,
correct.
right?
I
If you
don't
make
think we,
changes to a metric, then you should take it out of the released category and put it in another category, because then that version of the metric hasn't been released because it's been changed.
I just don't think we always updated that label.
Also, I believe even without changes to the metric, in previous releases, we did review those released metrics. So we treated them as a completely new release.
I think as we start releasing more and more metrics, I think I'm process-wise with Don that if something hasn't been changed, it just there's no comment. It just rolls into the next version. But if a filter has been added or a sentence has been added in the objectives, then we do roll it back, even just to provide a review on that one sentence.
Yeah, so my comment is that I don't think the spreadsheet is fully up to date. I think we have accepted pull requests to released metrics without changing the label in the spreadsheet.
Well, then to your point, yes, we would have to do a diff just to see if anything has changed. So maybe that's a working group action item to actually take a look at what is marked as released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're out of time. We didn't get to the contributor location metrics, so I did put that on the agenda for next week. I did, Matt, I did kind of start the agenda based on stuff that we talked about today that we either didn't get to or needed to follow up on.
Thank you.
So that's at least started.
John to see if he
Okay,
can for that.
cool. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Don. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.